Stuart, nice to see you.
Hey, take a seat.
Full house, I see.
So look, you know, a lot of people might not know what influencer marketing is. I mean, we're always bandying these marketing terms around. We like to come up with all sorts of brilliant buzzwords and everything, but influencer marketing has been taking the world by storm of late. But a lot of people might not know what it is. So why don't you tell everyone that's watching a little bit more about yourself, and let's explain what influencer marketing is in the first place.
Sure. So I've been in the game industry for coming on 15 years, first as a developer and then as a publisher at Atari. And then I've been involved in lots of interesting different startups. And most recently, I've been helping Machinima interact with the games industry to support their network. And for those of you who don't know, Machinima is one of the largest networks on YouTube. They have roughly 3.4 billion views of their videos a month, and there's over 30,000 content creators in the network, and it's very focused on games as a theme. The talent that's creating content, most of the content is generally focused on games. We like to consider those people influencers, as they have large subscriber bases, or some have small and some have large, and often they are supporting launches of games to actually maximize the exposure for the game, and also to maximize the exposure for themselves, because people, when games come out now, are starting to look to YouTube to find out what they should be playing or what their peers are playing, and the more views that these influencers get, the more advertising revenue that gets generated, the more exposure that the game gets. The publisher is happy because of that, and Machinima is obviously happy as well, because it increases the breadth of content and number of views in their ecosystem. So by influencer in this definition, we're talking about people on YouTube and even Twitch who create content based on a game or on something else that then trickles down to their subscriber base and actually gets those subscribers to potentially take an action.
Right, and what is it about the way that marketing has changed that means that we're now looking at influencer marketing as a major source? You know, there's lots of channels out there, right? Lots of different ways we could market. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So if you look at the traditional history of marketing games, you've really had a general PR bucket and a marketing bucket. And the marketing bucket was really focused on television and on magazines and on online editorial. The kind of crash of the middle market of video games in 2004, 2005, and into 2006 really decayed the amount of advertising dollars that were out there for those channels, and we saw lots of editorial features go by the wayside, whether they were online or if they were traditional print. TV advertising, there's always going to be a place for that, and that's because Walmart wants to guarantee a certain amount of shelf space in exchange for knowing that there's going to be TV. But even those really large companies, they understand that without the editorial support for their title, they're not going to be able to spread awareness at a reasonable rate, or at least a big enough rate to sell as many units as they intend to sell. And by no means is influencer marketing something that is relegated just to the biggest of the big. It also works for indies as well as mid-sized companies too. So the earliest people really to notice this were Microsoft, and they were hiring, before the words influencers and YouTube were put together, they were hiring people who had channels on YouTube that had various themes that really just staff within Microsoft really appreciated. And they would they would reach out to those people and hire them to make a video for them. And that was one of the ways that they would roll out launches of new products. And very quickly, a lot of people have caught on. And so when we're talking about influencer marketing, we're really saying, company A has product A, and they would like to get person B that has 100 followers on YouTube to make something to promote product A. And it's been only measurable in terms of views, which is actually more measurable than you could measure, say, an advertisement in a magazine or even a TV commercial. So I think that a lot of marketers have really appreciated the efficacy of this form of marketing because it's so measurable, and it's only getting more measurable.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the type of content that you can put out there in an influencer marketing program, I mean, maybe you could give a few ideas in terms of what people could actually do with that and how they can roll those influencers, really leverage those influencers. What are the different types of content, different ways that you can do that?
Yeah, so there's 4 basic ways that you can work with an influencer, and you can start as early in your process as before you've even started developing your game by doing number 1, which would be releasing assets to them and having them share those assets through YouTube in a short video to their subscriber base. Number 2 would be kind of a more exhaustive we play where the talent will create a video of the game itself and narrate as they're playing the game what they're doing, and some of them have more kind of character-driven ways of doing that people really enjoy. Or you could simply have them do a review, which is kind of consistent with the common way that you release a game. But more interestingly, you can have them do something that's a little more integrated with the game, whether it be having their character appear in the game, or really have some sort of branding that they have lent or sold, is probably the more correct word, to the publisher. And we've seen great examples of that in the last 6 months, first with Miniclip, both with PewDiePie, first with Miniclip with Agar.io. I don't think that anybody would have said that game was going to take the charts by the storm that it did,
right,
on its own. But when PewDiePie did the first press release that he was associated with it and started to promote it, it was pretty unstoppable on the charts. And then he did the same thing, and I imagine that this was another interesting deal with not the next game's Walking Dead, but the Scopely Walking Dead title that came out a month or so ago, and he had a promotional deal with that as well. And I think that though that IP is really strong, especially in the games and mobile category, having him push it really did drive a significant number of installs.
And that's also about knowing your audience and also knowing the influencer, right? Because that type of game is an absolute classic for PewDiePie to cover.
Exactly.
Just because of who he is and what he does.
Yeah, I think the contextual sensitivity of a game and the content of a game to the right talent is really important. I think that if someone's trying to find talent that's I don't know, making content based on Minecraft, and they want to promote a Walking Dead game through them, they've got a bad match, right? You really do have to ensure that your content maker, your influencer, has the same sensibility as whatever it is that you're trying to sell.
And some of those content types you mentioned are really just an extension of the old PR runaround, right? So, PR will send out the assets and they hope that you'll put it out on your publication, or PR will send you the promo code, or in the old days they used to send discs out, not anymore,
right.
But, and then they'd hope that you would review it. So for a lot of this, there doesn't seem to be a great deal of work to be done other than identifying the influencer and matching up the content.
That's right, and all of the big publishers at this point now have at least one person, if not a staff of more than one person, that's coordinating all of that. And so they're very quick to understand the low cost of this type of PR, and have been doing a really great job in really making influencers happy. And they do it in 2 different ways. The first way they do it is just around the release of the game, they send out copies of the game. And these guys are often guys, obviously, in their bedroom that are making content, and they're happy to have a free copy of a game. And they happily will make content based on it. And the other way, which has actually caused some trouble for some companies recently, is by paying for creators to make that content. And very much like in magazines, when you see the little writing at the bottom of the page that says this is an advertisement, that means that someone has paid to place whatever they've wanted there, and made it look like editorial. Similarly, there have been some cases recently where people have forgotten to do that and had created content on YouTube that was paid for by publishers and didn't mention that it was paid paid editorial. So I think that there's been some natural evolution in that marketplace, and things are better understood among influencers and around the companies that are doing this type of marketing.
And some of the more advanced content types, seem to need a lot more in terms of thought and production and understanding and working with the influencer. I mean, what are the first steps? What are the first sort of couple of things that organizations need to think about as they stop sort of taking the PR content and just pushing that out and start going to the next level? What are the things they need to consider there?
So true to kind of the name of Machinima, which the idea for the company years and years ago, if you remember, was to create content using maybe Epic, using their Unreal Engine, and creating content within the assets that were created for a game and adapting them into a digital series. So you can really start to get into some sophisticated content production that goes far above and beyond the video capture of your gameplay. So I think that if you look at some of the live action Mortal Kombat digital series that we've made, or that Halo series, there have been really involved, high budget, high production quality series that take a long time to plan and to execute. Right. So that's kind of one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is true machinima, which is what a lot of people are doing in Minecraft. And Minecraft is a great example. It's a huge percentage of the talent creators on YouTube in general. And they're creating full animated series using assets that they've created within Minecraft. And it's a very fun and interesting community of people that are turning out really excellent content.
Yeah, and once you've actually got that relationship with the influencer, you've worked with them on the content, what happens after that in terms of measurement, in terms of advertising? Have you seen any smart things in that respect that are new and people are just bringing into the party?
Sure. So the normal things that you can measure are the things that Google Analytics and AdSense provide: the number of views, the number of subscribers, and all of those things are very helpful. But as we're getting further and further into an age of difficult discovery, which is why I think influencer marketing has been important, is that people recognize that discovery in all product categories is becoming harder and harder. We're seeing mobile technologies arise that are looking at influencers, like companies like Rooster, that will provide a CPI technology for a YouTube influencer to make a video on Clash of Clans, say, and that video then would be displayed on YouTube, and the user base could actually click on a link that would track the CPI, and whether or not that person installs would determine whether or not the influencer would get paid. And I think that is a really great outlet for people that don't have easy direct access, and maybe they don't have the biggest budget, but they do have some budget. I think that for people, they need to, as we talked about earlier, by hook or by crook, reach out to people that they think are really are in the right sensibility for whatever it is that they're making, to get them to believe in what their product is, to get them to promote it. But I think that the earlier that developers get people involved on YouTube and make them really feel like they have a vested interest in the outcome of the project, the more successful their campaign's going to be. And almost the type of content doesn't really matter. If they can get someone with a reasonable enough size of following involved, they can really bank on the potential CPI that they can do, whether it's calculated through a technology like Rooster or if it's just based on page views.
And one of the things we found in our VB Insight reports, VB Insight is the research arm of VentureBeat, is that in our games monetization reports and mobile user acquisition reports that developers, publishers, they love CPI. I mean, why is that? What does it do for them?
I think that the basic premise is that if you can understand the lifetime value of your customer and you can understand how much it costs to get them, that you can build an arbitrage system and acquire users in a clockwork fashion. I don't know how sustainable and how great of a business that is. I think that we'll see in the next 6 to 18 months what happens with some of the bigger teams that are relying upon that type of arbitrage business. It's measurable. It's infinitely measurable. And so any marketer will tell you that TV is a little bit ethereal, magazines are very ethereal, billboards are even more ethereal, but if you can actually track the number of people that are interacting with whatever your content may be, and especially how they're getting into the top of the funnel and how they're leaving and what they've done in that time in between, then you really do have a dream marketing scenario.
So, influencer marketing 101, what are the first 2 or 3 steps that, everyone out there should be doing if they want to get involved in this wave of influencer marketing? What do they need to do first?
I think that exploration on YouTube to figure out what it is that you like and what hits your sensibility and what you discover is the first place to start. And by doing that, you'll be able to find the type of talent that you're attracted to and ostensibly would be attracted to your content, unless you're making some content for a very specific niche, in which case you should go and try to discover similar content to see who's out there that's making things that would fit the mold of what you're trying to do too, and then just try reaching out to them.
Right. And it's literally as simple as that. Just reach out, and then it's about the content. Yeah.
Absolutely, and some of those people won't respond, and some people will. And I think that you have to be persistent and kind and not overdo it, and you should be able to get some good results.
That's fantastic. Hey, Anthony, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate you joining us on.
Thank you for having me.
All right, take care.
Take care.